When people talk about the PS2, it's usually because of the 3D revolution it brought about. GTA, Metal Gear Solid 2, God of War. But apart from this, the PS2 was perhaps the last great bastion of console 2D gaming. With a massive step in processing power the PS2 brought about, 2D developers were finally allowed the freedom to create without technical restraint. Now in today's video, let me show you what they managed to create in the 6th generation console era. Odin Sphere 2007. The PS2 has laid claim to many high-quality JRPGs with epic stories, and Odin Sphere is definitely one of them. This isn't just a game, it's a Norse mythology opera brought to life with painterly anime-adjacent characters. Although that came with some major downsides, I experienced a lot of stutter and massive dips in frame rate as my old PS2 struggled to render the largest fights with all the explosive effects. The story is just as heavy as the visuals. It's a multi-perspective tragedy following 5 different protagonists: Gwendolyn, Cornelius, Mercedes, Oswald, and Velvet, and how their separate stories have intertwined as they attempt to save the world. It's a tale of love and loss, the battle against evil, and I really enjoy the ending to this game, as it's not the standard kill God and save the world type ending most JRPGs have. It's an ending as unique and as tragic, but also hopeful, and it'll have you feeling many emotions.
Welcome to Silver Star Tower.
GrimGrimoire 2007. GrimGrimoire is made by the same devs as Odin Sphere, and they're back with their amazing storytelling as they tackle one of my favorite types of stories, a Groundhog Day-style time loop. You play as Lilette Bland, a brilliant student who arrives at the Silver Star Tower Magic Academy only to find everyone dead 5 days later. This is where the time loop comes in, where you have to figure out the mystery of what happened and how to stop it. The gameplay is unique as it's a side-scrolling real-time strategy game, but instead of a top-down view like StarCraft, you are managing battles on a 2D side-scrolling cross-section of a tower. It gave me the feeling of looking at a magical ant farm. Also, there's a mechanic where you can summon a dragon, but in order to do so, you first summon its egg and have to incubate it and wait for it to hatch. With a beautiful art to tie everything together, GrimGrimoire is a unique experience that Japanese-style RTS fans should totally appreciate. Guilty Gear XX Accent Core 2007. The Guilty Gear series have always been known for its excellent art direction and animation, and XX Accent Core doesn't disappoint. The resolution might be 480i, but the designs and rendering are so sharp and well made that it feels like it hasn't aged a day. Backgrounds especially are so lively, they feel like they've been ripped from an anime, and that brings me to the characters, where XX Accent Core has an astounding 25 characters. The secret sauce to their success is how every game builds upon their last one. That means that although most of the assets have been taken from older games, that just means it gives the devs the time to polish what's already there and focus on piling on even cooler shit. Such as the new force breaks introduced in the game, where in exchange for a portion of your attention, you can cancel your current animation/combo and immediately start a different one, or whatever other strategy you need, and that opens up a lot of options, creating one of the most free-form, liberating fighting game experiences. Street Fighter Anniversary Collection 2004. You get Hyper Street Fighter 2, which is a fun museum piece, but the real reason I bought this, and the main reason it stayed in my PS2 collection, was Street Fighter 3 Third Strike. Third Strike contains some of the greatest 2D animations put in a video game, and no, I'm not talking about those big spectacle animations, but those small master strokes that separates a masterpiece from the rest. The way cloth and fabric ripple and trail, shoes crease, and characters move with such realism. As you can see, Ryu twist his entire body, push all that force onto his shoulder, and blast it out into a devastating punch. The characters here are animated at seemingly double or even triple the frames of any other fighting game from this time. The gameplay is just as beautiful. The parry system, tapping forward at the exact moment of impact, turns a static block into a sort of rhythm game where you have to match your opponent's combat rhythm to stay on top. Marvel vs. Capcom 2 New Age of Heroes 2002. There is so much to say about Marvel vs. Capcom 2 as it pushed so many boundaries. It dominated as having the biggest roster of characters with 56 for both Marvel and Capcom, Jill Valentine, Mega Man, Thanos, Venom, all the playground favorites. Then there's the 2D 3D mixed nature of it, as you have the 2D pixel art characters fighting, but the backgrounds and environments are all in 3D. And on top of that, the combat arena isn't just on one single plane, but the combat plane, for lack of a better word, will rotate and move around the environment, bringing the 2D characters a real sense of 3D belonging into the space, which sells that they're duking it out in the location rather than the location just being a static backdrop. And although there is no story mode, you will be grinding away at the game for hours, familiarizing yourself with these characters as you try to earn the points you need to unlock your favorite characters first and the rest of them eventually. The King of Fighters 11 2006. King of Fighters 11 is very underrated. It came at a historical low point for the series and was a big step in bringing back KOF from the brink of death. Now, some of you might recognize this UI as it's the direct inspiration for the most common Mugen screen pack, and my jaw actually fell when I played this recently for the first time and saw that UI. And to be honest, the UI is why this game is on this list. After seeing that HUD, I paid extra attention to the entire UI of this game, and yeah, I love how absolutely clean and modern this UI is. It feels like a UI that's made today rather than back in 2006. Clean text, straight lines with surprisingly little staircasing, and bold colors. The game also has this mechanic where you can start as super as one character, then switch into the super of your lead character, and this is called a dream cancel. I love the big dream cancel bar that fills the screen when that happens. Honestly, the cleanest and nicest UI of the entire PS2, in my opinion. Metal Slug Anthology 2007. I've glazed Metal Slug so many times. It's a masterclass in the industry when it comes to pixel art animation, with animation quality that I believe rivals the likes of Disney and DreamWorks. And this anthology is basically a museum of the finest sprite animations ever made. The way a tank chassis compresses and bounces when it fires a shell, the way enemy soldiers stop to chat or cook food before they notice you, the sheer volume of debris that scatters when a building collapses. There is so much attention to detail that it will make me weep. Metal Slug 3 stands out as the visual peak, taking you from underwater depths with giant eels to space battles against aliens, all rendered with such smooth animation that make my brain smooths it all together and simply stops being pixel art to me. And not to mention the music and sound effects. It's a bombastic mix of orchestral military marches and high-tempo rock that, when combined with the visuals, feels like you're playing a blockbuster movie.
Welcome to the
Capcom vs. SNK 2 Mark of the Millennium 2001. This game is a visual collision of two distinct eras of arcade technology. While critics often point out a clash between the recycled low-res sprites like Morrigan and the crisp new ones like Halmaru, I argue that its contrast creates a rather unique experience, like the characters are plucked out of different times and eras and forced to fight each other. Morrigan especially because she's still using her 1994 sprites, which is honestly kinda hilarious to fight with. The presentation is themed like a televised global sporting event, complete with flashy intros and 3D backgrounds that were cutting edge for the time, further adding to the worlds collide nature. My favorite one is the windmills, which I find to be surprisingly serene, despite the fighting happening in the foreground. This is one of the most technically complex fighting games, as with a groove system. You can utilize 6 different combat and super build-up systems, borrowed from the most popular Street Fighter and KOF games, and any character can use any combat groove. There's a lot to play, a lot to learn, and a lot to appreciate with this title.
Geo Battle Coliseum.
Geo Battle Coliseum 2005. The Battle Coliseum is basically like a direct counter to Capcom vs. SNK2, and it's also a large roster fighting in a 3D environment that plays on the Worlds Collide theme I was going on about, but this time purely within the SNK IPs. The biggest difference here is that, unlike with Capcom vs. SNK2, with its clashing sprite work, Here, all the sprites for all the characters have been painstakingly recreated from the ground up, so all the characters, well, except maybe Cyber Wu, are all visually cohesive and look like they belong together. Although 40% of the roster is from King of Fighters, who do have characters from very obscure SNK games like Samurai Showdown, Athena, The Last Blade, etc., and of course, Marco from Metal Slug. It's so amazing seeing Marco brought to life in a KOF style, and they even brought the hostage character in too. Can you tell he's my favorite? Although the game was critically panned and forgotten about, I'd recommend it just so you can see these classic SNK characters rendered and fighting in the grounded KOF art style. DoDonPachi DaiOuJou 2003. In the world of bullet hell, Danmaku, beauties found in the patterns of death, and DaiOuJou is the grandmaster of this genre. The beauty here isn't just in the pixel fidelity. Though the sprites are crisp and the scrolling is smooth, it lies in the hypnotic contrast here. You're flying over a bleak industrial moonscape that is washed out in gritty browns, grays, and rusted metals. But layered on top of this depression is a vibrant neon light show of pink and blue bullet patterns and the bloom of explosions. It really is hypnotizing, a euphoric melancholia, as someone put it. One of my favorite parts is how the enemy movement syncs with the background. Most bullet hells have afterthought backgrounds or maybe a couple of static guns or tanks driving across the screen. Here, grounded enemies drive along the streets of the background, entering and exiting buildings and moving in complex isometric paths. I've played many shoot-em-ups, and this has the smoothest sync between enemy placement and the background, bringing the background to life instead of just being a scrolling graphic. Mushihimesama 2005. Another bullet hell game by the same developer, Cave. Mushihimesama, which translates to Bug Princess, is strangely beautiful in a very... As you can see, this is probably one of the most beginner-friendly bullet hell games out there, so if you're new to the genre, this is a great title to try. But because it's beginner-friendly doesn't mean it's easy. But enough about that. This game is on this list because of its artwork. The artists here bring on a strange and beautiful insect world with giant rocks, grasses, and plants. And of course, the hordes of giant insects you'll fight, who have all been crafted to be so surreal. Giant beetles, dragonflies, and butterflies are animated with segmented parts that move in a creepy, realistic fashion before exploding into bright gold scoring tokens. If you love the macro world, if you want to try bullet hells, or if any of this looks interesting to you, this game is worth trying and appreciating. Espgaluda 2004. If DaiOuJou was too little for you and Bug Princess was too much for you, Espgaluda strikes that perfect middle ground between the two. Another game made by Cave, Espgaluda takes the Cave's signature bullet hell gameplay and sets it in a fantasy steampunk world. With Espgaluda, everything from the music, the visuals, the enemy, and character designs and the gameplay, they all come together into a unified cohesion that makes this game greater than the sum of its parts. All the different aspects play off and bounce off each other, something you can clearly see in the takeoff animation at the beginning of the game. When the main character, standing on a background element, spreads her wings and takes off in an explosion as the music kicks in, creating a cinematic movement in a bullet hell game of all things. Cave brought the A game when it came to the overall presentation of this game, and I would consider this to be a must-play for all bullet hell fans purely because this game shows just how fantastical and gorgeous a bullet hell can present itself. Ibara 2006. Another bullet hell game that has completely different vibes and aesthetics from the previous three I talked about. Ibara goes for that mechanical domination of World War II. It's the visual antithesis to Bug Princess, embracing a sepia and gunmetal color palette that the artists at Cave somehow made come to life. Giant, gargantuan machines of war, with tough but intricate, with many moving mechanical parts. It's such a visual feast that it's nearly a visual overload. There is, of course, that background and enemy cohesion I mentioned from DaiOuJou, with tanks, trucks, and mecha walkers crawling over large mechanized facilities. Fortresses have these turrets that aren't just a static gun that spin around to aim at the player, but are multi-sprite full animations where the head swivels and the barrel raises and lowers, but almost aesthetic mechanical motion. Honestly, all this attention to detail amongst the fast bullet hell gameplay is why I put Ibara on this list. It really is fascinating. The PS2 era was a special time where the popularity of 2D games didn't die with a whimper, but went out with a bang. These games proved that the 3D polygons don't have to be the future, but the rat race for realism isn't the only way to pursue beauty. From the watercolor painting brought to life in Odin Sphere to the handcrafted mechanical chaos of Ibara, the art direction and style make these games stylish, still being played while its contemporaries require remasters and HD re-releases in order to keep up with the future standards.